How many times have you guys peeled your carrots and the top layer you just throw away? I save mine. I save all of them, and then when I'm ready to make a carrot cake for the kids, I take them out and I make this recipe. And this recipe is from veggiedessert.com. Shout out to Kate, because she outdid herself with this one. My kids love it. So you can absolutely freeze your carrots. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a professional. I have no real idea if you can. This is not frozen. This is just from me making dinner 2-3 times a week. The first thing we're gonna do is we're going to put our shredded peels into a food processor. I have this baby food processor, so we're gonna go through this step a couple times. Use a spatula. That is good. We're going to need 3 large brown eggs. It could be any eggs you like. 3-4 cups of sugar. So you have to understand something about this sugar that I just recently learned. Sugar in baked products has to be this white. I used to use organic cane sugar, which has a little bit of color to it, and that actually weighs down your cake. So make sure that your sugar is like Santa Claus North Pole white. And we're also going to use 1/2 cup of vegetable oil and 1 cup of plain Greek yogurt, 1/2 cup of golden raisins. And this is 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Kate's recipe asks for 1.5 cup of self-rising whole wheat flour, but I had a very difficult time finding self-rising whole wheat flour. So what I did was I just bought whole wheat flour and added baking powder to it, which is what basically makes any self-rising flour rise. And this little beauty is 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, and just a pinch of salt. And then we have 2 teaspoons of baking powder and ginger. Also, this recipe does not call for walnuts, but my family is obsessed with walnuts, so I'm gonna add this to Kate's recipe. Hopefully she's not offended that I slightly made it my own. But that's what's so beautiful about this. You should make it yours. Now, you don't have to do it this way because this would be a lot of dishes for you to wash, but because I care so much about you guys, I am willing to ruin my nails and waste all these dishes so you could see what it looks like before I put everything in. I also learned a trick where you can crack your eggs with 1 hand. What? Did you get that? I did that. I just did that. That took a long time to practice. So we're gonna put our eggs in first. So at this point, I'm gonna now pour everything in together. Don't use your hands, use a spoon. Don't be like me, but I'm trying to move fast. I'm gonna bring up the speed so I could emulsify. And now just let it do its thing. And at this point, I'll stop it. And now the star of the show is gonna go in next. Kate's recipe says 4 handfuls. There's 1, there's 2, 3, and 4. So this is the part where I grate my ginger, and it really depends on your family. Because my kids are gonna have this, I'm just gonna do a teaspoon. And then we're gonna put in our walnuts and our raisins. And let's let it do its thing before we put in the flour. We just wanna make sure it's blended in before we put in the flour. So we're going to swift our dry ingredients. And for years, I didn't know why I did this. It's just because I was watching my chef friends do it this way. But I just recently learned it's because this process makes sure that your cake or your baked goods are nice and airy. So we're gonna put in our flour. I'm gonna do it in doses. So I'll put in that much to start the process, and then slowly watch it. Make sure all the sides get mixed in. Two more. So you don't want to over mix because there is gluten in the flour, and the more you mix it, the more that gluten gets tightened up, and it just makes your mix like a really, really tight squeeze, and you want it to relax and fluff up. So I stop it, and this is the point where I start hand mixing it myself. And it is already pretty mixed in. You just want to make sure there's nothing in the bottom, and there isn't. See, it's all mixed in. And we're ready to pour this into our nice greased up pan. So I've never been a carrot cake girl, but I will say this, when I made this, I was actually really impressed. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So we're gonna bake this at 350 for 45 minutes, but I would check it at 30 minutes. Always check at 30 minutes, put your toothpick in to make sure that it's moist in the middle. And then if it's not, you could always put it back. I put it in the middle. While the cake is in the oven, we can get started on our frosting. So for the frosting, we're gonna do a teaspoon of milk, a whole stick of butter, because you would be cheating yourself if you didn't use a whole stick of butter. And we have 1.5 cups of powdered sugar, my favorite kind of sugar, and a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract, the best vanilla extract you'll ever find. Sponsor me. And let's get started. Just drop that baby in there and just turn on your mixer and beat it until it gets really smooth. You want to put all your powdered sugar. Make sure none of it gets on the paddle like I just did right now. Cinnamon, right here. 1 teaspoon of the best vanilla extract that ever lived. A teaspoon of milk. So you see how the bottom, the flour is just sitting on the bottom? So at this point I want to stop it and just make sure that the bottom flour gets in the game. You don't want to leave anybody out. That's like 1990s playground bullying. Be a little bit more progressive with your mixing. Don't be exclusive. You want to also make sure that everything from your paddle gets in there. And if you were not joining me in this little lesson, I would use my fingers, but I have a feeling that would creep some of you out, even though you're not going to be the one eating this. It's been 30 minutes, and at this point, even though the cake is meant to cook for 40, I'm going to check it to make sure, because everyone's oven is different. So I check with a little skewer, but you could do toothpick, whatever you like, and I check many locations, not just the middle. And when you take it out, that looks, to me, dry. But I have been told that this little wetness right here means that it's not ready. So I'll check this area. That looks like it has a little bit of this area. Yep, there's just a tad. Just a tad. Put it back in for 10 minutes. So that looks perfect. It's nice and brown on top, and I'm sure if I put my toothpick in, it'll come out completely dry. The cake is now at room temperature, perfect to start dressing it. A simple way to do this is just put everything in the middle of your cake. And then just make an S. And again, you will look like, wow, you really know what you're doing. When in reality, you're just doodling like you're bored in social studies. Oh man, I can't get enough. This is so therapeutic. I could just sit here all day while my kids are screaming top of their lungs and just do this. Everything's all right. Life is going to be just fine. I could feel the inside moist and the outside has the perfect crisp, and you can tell by, did you hear that noise? That is my favorite part of the cake. I have my tea, which would be so weird if you didn't have tea with your sweets. It wouldn't be, I'm just being judgy. You could eat it however way you want. All right, because I told you my favorite part is the end, I don't go there. I go here. Because I want a little bit of the end. That's a big bite, but I have a big mouth. The walnut and the raisins. That's good. I'm not gonna say that it rocks my world because I'm such a chocolate fiend, but that's good. And here it is. Your carrot cake without anything going to waste. Hey, why not? Be good. Do something.